Oh, look at that guy. He's drinking. Don't be scared, little buddy. Wow. He's so tiny. Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. I got an exciting video for today. Just hanging out with my Roma tomatoes right now, which is ironic, and I'll explain that later. But today's video is about pruning tomatoes. How you should do it, and why you should do it. Okay, pruning tomatoes, or as some gardeners like to call it, desuckering tomatoes. Why should you do it? Well, there's really only one reason. Increasing your yield. Desuckering your tomatoes can increase the yield per plant by sometimes up to double. So, double the production? How is that possible? Well, to explain how that's possible is to also show you how it's done. So let's look a little bit at tomato physiology and anatomy, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So in tomatoes, you have this stem with side shoots going out. You know, a typical growth pattern of many plants. Trees have this pattern, vines have this pattern. You know, many plants grow this way. And where those side shoots meet the main stalk, those are called nodes. And it's in these nodes where we get to what this video is all about. So as you see here, that is a tomato sucker. So, what is a tomato sucker? How is it different from just a regular side shoot? Well, it's very different. It is what they call adventitious. In simple terms, those little shoots coming out of those nodes, those suckers, they want to become plants themselves. They don't want to become side shoots to support that plant. They want to become a plant. And it's this want, it's this vigorous growth that takes away from the overall potential of that tomato plant. So it's easy to see why we'd want to take those suckers out, right? But it's not quite so simple. You know, if you live in an area with a long growing season, oftentimes you'll leave several of these early suckers on because you will get a much bigger plant with much bigger yields. So it's not so simple as just snipping off every sucker you see. You know, it's not like nipping off strawberry runners where you want the mother plant just to stay the mother plant and keep producing and producing and producing. These suckers, especially the early ones, can grow up to be a main vine themselves and produce copious amounts of tomatoes. So before I show you how to desucker a tomato, we also have to recognize that there's two main types of tomato growth. Now the first type, the type that we're talking about here in this video, is an indeterminate tomato. Now indeterminate tomatoes, which some people call vine tomatoes, are tomatoes that don't have a predetermined amount of growth. They will grow up and up and up and up, sending out suckers out of the nodes, left, right, and center. They'll grow 30, 40 feet tall if properly staked and if the growing season is long enough. So indeterminate are the kind that you need to desucker to maximize your yields. Now the other kind is a determinate tomato, what we often call bush tomatoes. Now bush tomatoes, like this heirloom Tiny Tim, they grow into a perfect round bush and generally aren't desuckered because we want the bush to get fuller and fuller and fuller. Now, some of you pros out there know that there are a few bush varieties, determinate varieties, that we do desucker. Now one of them, you know, depending on the length of your growing season, would be a Roma. That is a perfect bush variety candidate for desuckering. But we'll leave determinate pruning for another video. Here we're going to focus on indeterminate vine tomatoes and how to desucker them for maximized yields. So I know the build-up for this is ridiculously long for something that is so easy to do, but I always like to show you the why of why we do things before we get into the how. Now, I feel like oftentimes in gardening, people just tell you what to do, what to do, what to do, without explaining why we do these things. When you start to get an understanding and an idea of what these practices we do, what the cause and effect is, you really start to formulate your own ideas of how to properly garden. And that's when you know you've made it from beginner status to an expert gardener. Okay, the moment of truth. Desuckering, here we go. And done. That is it. That is desuckering a tomato. Let's find another one in case you missed it. Oh, here's a bigger one. Let's grab this guy. Boop. Desuckered. Okay, couple tips before you just start willy-nilly desuckering everything. Like I said before, if you got a longer growing season, you might want to leave a couple of those suckers on, especially the early ones. Let them grow up, let your vine be sort of multiple liters, can really increase your yields. The other thing, if you are going to desucker it early. They come off easier, they come off with less damage to the main stem, and you're getting them before they can take a ton of resources from the main plant. So if you're going to desucker them when they're 3 inches or less. That's pretty much it. Simple stuff. Not simple stuff is this bed here. There's a bunch of vine tomatoes where I need to do a little more work than just desuckering. So anyway, it's early enough in the day. I'm going to get to that now before it gets too hot. I hope you enjoyed the video. Click subscribe if you haven't already. As always, leave some questions or comments down below. What do you think of desuckering tomatoes? Have you ever desuckered determinate varieties? If you have, let us know how you did it and what the variety was. Okay guys, see you next time.